Give me 8 minutes and I'm going to transform the way you think about your deadlifts head to toe. And I'm gonna do this in 8 parts, each part being 1 minute. Now I've deadlifted 1,047 pounds. I've won World's Strongest Man. I've also gone to school for this. This is my 8 best tips for you to know exactly how you should be deadlifting. Part number 1, you have to know your femurs. Your femur length is gonna be one of the primary determinants of how you're gonna set up for deadlift, what your torso position is gonna be, and often where the weak point in the lift is gonna fall for you over time. Now, for men to be in the 50th percentile, you wanna be about 35% of your height to be on your femurs. This is based on anthropometric data. I'll pop up a little boring chart here. You can use that and mathematically figure out how long each one of your limb lengths should be relative to another. You can use that, or you can just take my word. Your femur length should be 35%. Now how you measure this is sit down, take the front of your knee, go all the way to the back of your butt, take that length, divide that length by your total height, of course in the same unit. This isn't the most accurate way to measure femur length, but that's how they did it with this table, so we're gonna stick with that. Should be 35%. For you to get some perspective, Thor, his femur is 26% of his height, Larry Wheels 28%, Eddie Hall 25%, and Mateusz 29%. The average strongman has a shorter femur than average because short femurs create a mechanical advantage by bringing your hips closer to the bar by having a shorter femur. That's part 1, moving on to part 2. Number 2 is you have to learn your shoulder width, your personal width of your shoulders. Take a tape measure, find that hard spot on the outside of your shoulder, and that's called your AC joint, where your acromion meets your clavicle. Now that point is going to determine where your hands have to be on the bar. So measure from one shoulder to the other, and that distance should be where you put your index finger on the bar. If you go wider than shoulder width, there's a massive upper back demand, and you know this if you've ever done snatch grip deadlifts. And if you go narrower, it's very difficult to pull your shoulders back at the lockout of the lift. And you also can't engage your lats properly if you're too far in. You just feel like you're very bound up. For reference, a power bar is 32 inches apart for the brake and the knurling. So if your shoulders were 32 inches, your index finger would be on the brake and the knurling. This applies to only absolute freaks of nature, maybe like a Brian Shaw. The knurling starts at about 17 inches apart. So if you were 17-inch shoulder to shoulder, your index finger would be right where the knurling starts on a power bar. Virtually everybody is gonna fall somewhere in between those two. So measure your shoulders and figure it out for yourself. Moving on to point number 3. Point number 3, we've got our femur length, we've got our shoulder width, you've grabbed the bar, now you just have to set your feet. Now simply put, you need to set your feet as a place where your elbows and your knees aren't competing for space, but you want your feet to be as wide as possible given those parameters. You don't want your knee running into your elbow, but you don't want space between your knee and your elbow. Whenever you see a good deadlifter, you will see absolutely no space there because space equals power leak when it comes to that position. One way to reverse engineer how wide your feet should be, and this should roughly line up to the hand width approximation. If you take one step, like you're gonna do a counter movement jump, like you're gonna go 2-foot jump and grab a basketball rim, that foot stance is where you're most powerful. It's gonna be somewhere directly under your hips, and ultimately, in a perfect world, your feet are directly under your hips, your arms are directly under your shoulders. That creates the best stacking position, it creates the best leverage about your hips as well to stop any shifting from side to side. And if you can create that stable base, then all the force production you have is gonna go towards lifting the bar upwards. Point number 4 is determining your torso angle. And this is given a lot of attention, but in my opinion, far too much. I believe that anywhere from 15 degrees to 45 degrees above parallel is acceptable for a deadlift start position, but it's based on your femur length. Not everyone can squat down like Eddie Hall, have a very upright torso like personal trainers like to teach. If you have long femurs, naturally your hips are going to be higher. Now, hips too high is gonna result on something that looks like an RDL. You're gonna have absolutely no power off of the floor, and it's gonna be a large demand on your posterior chain. If you sit your hips too low and your torso angle is too high, when you go to pull, the bar is gonna be slightly out in front of you, so it's just gonna lurch you forward. And I think we've all felt that at one point in time and another. But the good thing is, this is figured out for you in point number 5. Point number 5 is you have to align the backside of your shoulder capsule with the bar. If you take a video right from the side, you should see your tricep and the back of your tricep where it meets your armpit, that's where the bar should sit. Engaging your lats doesn't bring the bar closer into you. The bar will always tend to go to a position where it's directly under the backside of your shoulder capsule. When it is a very heavy lift, there's no way for you to do any sort of lat pullover. Now, all you have to worry about is neutral spine and getting your shoulder over the bar, and your torso angle is figured out for you. It really is that simple. As long as your shoulder is over the bar and you have a neutral spine, wherever your torso angle happens to be, that's where it happens to be for you. There's a large amount of individual variation. Now, bonus part on number 5, if you can't get into that position because you feel like your knees shoot out to the sides, you're gonna have one of two problems. One, you either have tight hip flexors, or 2, you're gonna have the inability to internally rotate the hips. Say like a Nick Best, who has very narrow feet, but feet pointed out so his knees can go outwards. This is an individual variation. We're gonna get to individual variation at the end, but work on your mobility first if you can't get into a good deadlift position with your feet close. Let's move on to point number 6. Point number 6, I'm gonna be pretty brief, and I'm gonna pop a 100% free guide to core bracing in the description. But core bracing is the way you translate power from your lower body to your upper, and it really is how much stiffness can you create between the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis. Simply put, right now, put your hand on your chest, put your hand on your stomach, and breathe so that only your stomach hand moves. This means that your diaphragm is the one that's moving your lungs and contracting to pull air in and push air out of your lungs, although air really isn't pushed out, it's only pulled in. Lungs are totally passive. Regardless, diaphragm comes down, then contract your pelvic floor, which I'm doing right now as I'm looking at you. Do the same as you're looking at me, and those two things are really the foundation. Contract your diaphragm by breathing in and pushing your stomach out, contract your pelvic floor, and then push out like you want to poo, but don't poo. Maybe you will a little bit, not the end of the world. Happens to the best of us. Moving on to point number 7. Point number 7 is the most controversial point that the vast majority of personal trainers or people who haven't been at the top level of strength sports would disagree with vehemently, including all of my professors who have never lifted a heavy weight in their life. You want to protract your shoulders to the bar. Okay, right now, sit in your chair, hold your arms out in front of you, pull your shoulders back and see where your fingertips end, and do the same thing, but push your shoulder forward. And see that difference in range. We're talking a 6-inch range of motion. If you pull your shoulder blades back, not only is that a completely impossible thing to hold at maximum weight, and you're gonna lose the position anyway, well, you're trying to add 6 inches of range of motion to the movement where you're gonna have to get super deep into your hips. It doesn't make any sense. You can protract and still engage your lats. You engage your lats stronger when you protract your shoulder. Think about doing a maximal rope pullover. When you get tired, you start to reach forward and kind of curl your upper body over. That's because we're getting our lats closer to each other. Front of the shoulder, internal rotation, protract, lock in. That should be your position for your deadlifts. Now for the 8th and final point, we're running out of time here, but there's a large amount of individual variation on what works for people. Let's say you have a very large stomach. Well, you can't have your feet down so that your shoulders can be shoulder width, or else there's no place for your thighs to go. Of course, you're gonna have to go a little bit wider. Let's say you have really strong upper back and hips. Using a wider grip might be an advantage for you. Let's say you have difficulty at the top end of the lockout. You might wanna do a 2-part deadlift like a Rob Kearney has done in the past. This is really all in the setup. If you perfect the setup, you're gonna set yourself up extremely well to be able to lift big weight. And remember, lifting big weight is more about being efficient and using the best technique over pounding as much weight as possible day after day. Pop in the comments what you think I missed. Go ahead, put these into practice, come back to this video and let me know if they helped you out, and hopefully you'll smash your deadlift PB. As always guys, lift heavy, be kind. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll catch you tomorrow.